From 1930 to 2006, students were taught that there were 9 planets in our solar system: Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. But in 2006, things changed. The International Astronomical Union, or IAU, defined the concept of a planet and declared that Pluto was no longer part of the club. Wait, what? How did this happen? What does it mean? That's what we're going to talk about in this video. To do that, we need to answer 3 specific questions. What is a planet? Why is Pluto no longer considered a planet? What is Pluto? Let's get started. What is a planet? What makes it different from a moon or an asteroid or all the other things out there floating in space? The answer to that question is a bit more complicated than one might think. One of the main reasons why is that until recently, there wasn't really an official definition for the term planet. The concept had just sort of evolved over time.
The ancient Greeks actually came up with the word planet. It means wanderer, because looking at the night sky, the planets move or wander around. Back when people thought the Earth was the center of the universe, Earth was not counted as a planet, and planets were just considered a class of lights in the sky. Even the sun was called a planet, and even after people realized that the sun was the center of the solar system and that planets, Earth included, orbited around it, the definition of what exactly a planet was still muddy. Asteroids were called planets, or at least small planets, for a long time, until as recently as the 1950s. Thinking of asteroids as planets made sense with the existing theories of the time. As scientific theories and understanding evolved, eventually asteroids were considered different than planets. The asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter shows up in a lot of models and pictures of the solar system. But there is another belt that isn't talked about as much. It's out beyond Neptune, and is called the Kuiper Belt. The thing is, people started finding things in the Kuiper Belt that were pretty big, about the same size as Pluto. That got people thinking, maybe we do need an official definition of a planet. So the International Astronomical Union, or IAU, the organization that names planets, got a committee together. In 2006, they voted to accept this definition of a planet. A planet must orbit a star. In the case of our solar system, that means the sun. A planet must be big enough to have become round. A planet must clear the neighborhood around its orbit, meaning that its path around the sun is mostly clear.
So that is the current official definition of a planet. It needs to orbit a star, it needs to be round, and it needs to have a pretty much clear path around its star. But you can't forget that science can be messy. You're right. Even though this is the official definition of a planet, not all scientists agree with it. For example, some scientists don't think that the third point, a planet clearing its orbit, should be a criteria. And in a paper in 2019, a group of scientists pointed out that they don't think that scientific definitions should be decided by vote, but rather scientists should be allowed to discuss concepts and let the definition evolve over time like it has in the past. I think we have enough information now to move on to the second question. Why is Pluto no longer considered a planet? So why is Pluto not a planet? Well, simply because it doesn't fit the IAU's 2006 definition of what a planet is.
It meets the first requirement, it goes around the sun, and it meets the second requirement, it's round. It's the third requirement where it runs into trouble. Pluto is part of the Kuiper Belt, so it doesn't really have a clear orbit. It has a bunch of neighbors.
Pluto doesn't meet the official definition of a planet because it doesn't clear its orbit.
But not everyone agrees with the official definition.
That's true. Textbooks have changed to reflect the official definition, but there are some scientists who still think of Pluto as a planet. And that brings us to our final question. So what is Pluto? Well, if you don't agree with the IAU's definition, it might still be a planet. Agreeing with the IAU's definition doesn't mean that you think Pluto is just a big rock or a piece of space junk, though. The IAU recognized that objects that meet requirements 1 and 2, but not 3, are different than other objects like asteroids, so they gave them the name dwarf planets. It's worth noting that on NASA's website, they still list the dwarf planets under the overall planet category. So what is Pluto? Officially, it's a dwarf planet. But if someone asked you, what is Earth? Would you answer, it's a planet, and just move on? Earth is so much more than its classification, and so is Pluto. In 2015, a spacecraft called New Horizons flew by Pluto. The data it sent back has made one thing clear. Pluto is cool. NASA's website explains that Pluto has blue skies, spinning moons, mountains as high as the Rockies, and it snows, but the snow is red. Plus, Pluto has a heart. This heart shape is made by a giant glacier. There is even some evidence that Pluto might have a hidden ocean beneath its surface. So there you have it. According to the official definition, a planet is something that orbits a star, is round, and clears its orbit. Pluto does not clear its orbit, therefore it is not a planet. But because it meets the first two criteria, it is a dwarf planet. But it's a little complicated. You're back. Yep. You're right, though. Pluto is officially a dwarf planet, but the debate over its classification is an important example of how science can be messy, and it's okay for scientists to disagree on things. And thanks to the New Horizons space mission, we now know a lot more about what this distant world is like. And while it may not be one of the 8 official planets, it's not going anywhere.